So get this right, IGN gave Choo-Choo Charles 4 out of 10. Let's read what they said. Choo-Choo Charles is a silly mess of an adventure with its joke of a premise falling short of ever delivering the punchline. Combat against the evil train is always tedious and repetitive, and running quests on foot is even more unappending with awful stealth sections through dilapidated hallways in a lifeless, empty map. SmackNPie here. What you just read, or what you just heard, was IGN, one of the biggest gaming journalist company out there, one of the biggest entertainment companies out there, writing that review. Now, personally, I know over the years, IGN has been a laughingstock for a lot of people for a number of reasons, right? There have been many reviews that I personally agreed with them, and majority of the people haven't. But this one specifically boiled me. It doesn't usually boil me because when they're covering AAA games or even AA games like a Plague Tale or Quiem, I don't mind. Because I know, it's going to be different because of the people that are playing this. But when you're specifically reviewing, and I know people are going to argue with me, so I'm going to come to both points. When you're specifically reviewing a game which is made by one person, single-handedly, a nearly perfectly polished game, more polished than any of the AAA games that have dropped this year with hundreds of developers. Of course, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. Developers, fans are loving the gameplay. Atmosphere is easily one of the best I've experienced the entire year. Sure, it's not a 10 out of 10 game. Sure, it's short. Sure, it's a little pricey for what we get. But calling it absolutely dull? What the heck, man? This review is harsh. If it was 6 out of 10 to 7 out of 10, I would have, maybe I can understand a majority of the people saying, you know what, it deserved to be 7 out of 10. And I would agree with you 100%. Even 6.5 out of 10, understandable. I played this game on the stream, and me being a boo-boo player, I completed it in 3 hours. Me as a boo-boo player. So if I finished it in 3 hours and I loved every single one, and I play a lot of horror games. A lot of them I don't even play on this channel, but I play a lot of horror games. Recently I played Callisto Protocol, Resident Evil Village. Those two are like my top of the list for this year specifically, mainly because I don't remember there are games that dropped early this year in terms of horror. But for Choo-Choo Charles to get a 4 out of 10, that is just harsh. Considering, it's a solo developer, and then people are going to be like, okay, you can say it's a solo developer, but criticism is criticism. I would back you 100%. There's a game called Bright Memory Infinite, and before Xbox picked it up for its console and PC, the whole game was made by one person. What you're seeing on your screen is the gameplay made by one person, solo developer. It looks like a AAA game, and I love it to death. It is one of my favorite games, and it's a short game because again it's made by one person, and it's a very tight gameplay, just like Choo-Choo Charles. And it's like very gameplay focused, just like Choo-Choo Charles. And if anybody who's been watching the trailers or following the game, or even not, even just should have just one glimpse at the game, you would understand what this game is all about, what it had to offer. I think the difference that between us and them might be that we knew what we were gonna get when we saw the game, and they expected some AAA shizzle of a solo developer. Now let's talk about some of the criticism. Let's talk about it. The one thing I will agree with you is the price. Even though the IG didn't say about price, I've seen a lot about the price, and I would agree with you. It can be a little pricey depending on, it doesn't have that much for the gameplay hours that you get out of the game, even if you do all the optional chores and whatnot. I understand for the price. The atmosphere was nuts. Of course it a little empties because it is an abandoned forest. It is abandoned woods because Charles, this train devil, came to life. People left this island. People left this these woods and forests and whatnot because there was a threat, and the people who are left are here to end it all with our help, because one of the main characters was like, hey, yo, let's come together and let's finish it once and for all. That's the premise of the game, and that's where you pick it up. Now, as for the Charles and as for the gameplay, The whole point is, you get to face Charles every once in a while. Every now and then, his alarm would pop off. And whether you are exploring on foot, which in my opinion, exploring on foot is one of the best things because it is so scary. Because of the atmosphere. Atmosphere nailed it, 10 out of 10. There's one ghost section of the game, easily my favorite portion of the game. It is so chilling. But coming back to the Charles, every now and then he would pop up and you would have to enter your train or not and, subdue him or, at least shoot him for a while, do a damage, and he would leave away. The premise is not to kill him as you're, finishing the tasks and whatnot. There's a definitive way to do it, and the only way to do it is that you complete all the missions and then you face him 1v1 and then you can beat him. The whole point of not being able to, kill him, and because it gets repetitive, is because you need to go and get scraps so you can upgrade your damage, you can upgrade your armor and speed whilst you're doing the main objectives to lead up to the final boss. He is just a roadblock. Every once in a while he's showing up. You're not meant to fight him and kill him for whilst you're doing the additional and main chores. That is just a side thing, that's just a thing that you have to do to get rid of him. The main 1v1 Choo-Choo Charles is at the end when you complete all the missions. So yeah, I know I'm just rambling a little bit, I understand if this is a 7 out of 10. For me, it's a 8 to 9 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10, but very harsh, very harsh. Usually these reviews doesn't get under my skin, but reviewers all around are really harsh on this game, and I think it is unfair and it is injustice. If you want to do this kind of review, be consistent. Be consistent with every game, whether it be AAA, AA's, indie, does not matter. If I don't see the consistency in your journalism, it is nothing more of a hypocritical, and it is nothing more of a joke.